Marcia Rosen's in the room, and she has spoken for us before. She's given great insights into memoirs, and she finds things in all kinds of nooks and corners. And she's going to talk to us tonight about how have you lived your life and what are the truths about your choices and experiences and why you made them. This presentation is designed to be informative and also fun. So I'm not going to go over everything that was on the website other than to tell you that she is an award-winning author of 11 books. Murder at the Zoo, I believe, was the last one, wasn't it, Marcia? We're not hearing you.
Yes. Yes.
Oh, okay. Okay. Murder at the Zoo. Senior Sleuths Dying to be Beautiful. I kind of like that title.
Me too.
Mysteries and Menus, memoir, and she's the host of My Memoir blog and the owner of a marketing and PR agency for 25 years. And so she's got a lot of insights that will be fun to listen to tonight. And as I said, after she's done, towards the end of here, I'm going to stay on for those that want to talk more about their books in general or upcoming things. But for now, I want to just turn the floor over to Marcia Rosen.
Thank you, darling. I really appreciate it. And I appreciate all of you inviting me and asking me to be here. I have actually worked with a number of people, helping them write their memoirs, as well as having decided to do my own. And along the way, I really decided that writing a memoir was very much like writing a mystery. After having written so many mysteries, I thought this is very similar. It's like, questions, searching for the truth. What is it, you're really looking for? What are the clues about the story of your life? And one of the things I'd like to say is that I'm really fine being interrupted and ask questions. I know the format may be just wait till the end a certain time, but I really feel that when somebody's doing a talk like this, what you want are answers to your own needs and concerns and stuff like that. And I apologize, I've been kind of losing my voice, so hopefully that won't happen. Anyhow, I feel that writing memoirs are kind of like two elements to it. And there's really a lot, but the two basic elements are you telling your story. What is your story? What do you want to tell? How much of your story do you want to tell? Are you willing to tell? And there are secrets you have that you may not want to include. You may want to write about the whole of your life or just a portion. Years ago, when I've been giving memoir classes for, I don't know, close to 20 years. And I was at a senior center and this gentleman said, I just want to write about one part of my life when he was in the war, and he had met a nurse and he literally had called her hot lips, and he wanted to write about that experience. So it depends how much you want to write and what you're looking for. And then it's what is the purpose of what you're wanting to write your memoir? Is there something in your memoir that you feel would really help a lot of people if they knew the story and what it was about and what you went through? And there's a lot of memoirs like that, like A Boy Called It, those kinds of stories of people who've been through such abusive and difficult situations. So also, it's, again, when telling how much of your story you want to tell, there was one woman, and I had worked with her literally on, I think, about 20 of her books, but her first book was a memoir, and she lived an incredible life. And her father was Dean of Columbia Medical School in New York. She had lived a very privileged life, but she started the memoir like when she was younger. And we went through, she had 3 interesting husbands and wrote about them. And when we got finished with the book, she looked at it, we went through it and discussed it and realized the most interesting parts of her life and her memoir began with her marriages. And so what we did is we just took that whole beginning before her marriages and put it in a separate section, wrote a little note that said, if you wanted to know more about her life before her marriages, you could read this section. So those are some things you can think about as you're writing it. It doesn't matter if you're writing a portion of your life, one day of your life. I think unless you're, a celebrity who's embellishing and wants to tell stories, it's really important to be truthful. You really want to tell the truth of your life, but you also want to realize, what is the story you want to tell? Because, I could read off, where are the things you can find to remember. And in this day and age with Google, you can find everything and everybody else can. But, the thing is, what part of your life do you really, want to tell? And, you can look, you can look in old journals and old diaries. You can look online. You can talk to family. You can look in old photo albums. So you can find things. But I remember one of the classes that I was giving, this woman, she was, writing about the beginning of her memoir. And her husband had been in the military, and she was writing about what it was like while she was alone with her children. And when she was through reading it, I said to her, is this really the way you want your children to read this? When I give classes, I'm very tactful. I don't want to be critical, but offering suggestions. My classes are not meant to critique that, you need to change this or do this, but how can we support you? And, is this really what you want? Or here's some suggestions. But she wrote something, it was like she hated her kids. She didn't really realize what she sounded like and what she wrote. So you want to think about when you're writing your memoir, going from the two elements, one is your story and the other is the structure. So in the story, you want to think about what is the tone, what is the point of view? What is the emotional information that you want to share? How willing, when I recently was writing my memoir, because I've helped so many other people, that seemed easy. It's so much easier when you're helping other people through their lives and the lives that they've lived. And it's very different when you're writing your own, because there's your own emotional stuff that comes up and thinking about, well, do I really want to say this? And again, like that woman that I told you about that, we deleted the beginning. There was a section, there was a story she had about a romance she had with a gentleman who had become a very famous man. And we talked about, should it stay in the book? And no, it had no purpose. The man was married, the man had children, and the only purpose would have been, as she put it, her ego. And so we took it out. So all of those things are the elements of telling your story. And there are so many ways that you can structure telling your story. You can do it by, the decades. Here was what it was like in my 20s or 30s or 40s. You can do it. I had somebody that I helped. It was by subject. They had a chapter that was about grief and a chapter that was about love. And so you can decide, there's many different ways. You can just do a through line of what it was like beginning when you first started with this, or do you want to highlight your career or your professional life, or you have to decide how much of the realities of what your life was and what you experienced, and be willing to put it in it. And then the whole thing, as you said, when you were talking about the contest, how you wrote it, so that when this book is done, do you want to get this book published? So you need to put this in a structure that you can present to a publisher. And how do you do that? And, I know a lot of people, I've had, people that I've worked with, they want to find an agent. It's not easy. The publishing industry has changed significantly. And excuse me, probably one of the simplest versions of saying this is that, maybe it's 20 years ago, there were 20 top publishing firms. Now maybe there's 5, because they've joined together. 20 years ago, if you had somebody go to a publishing house for you, you had an agent and they represented you and the editor liked your work, you had a good chance that they would publish your book. That's not going to happen. The people who make the decisions in publishing houses now are the marketing department. So you want to be sure that what you're looking at is, do you have a book that has an audience? And, I could, as you know, I mean, having my marketing and PR agency, I could talk about the marketing and PR for probably 3 days. But the fact of the matter is, you want to make sure that you're setting it up right, the double space, the 12 point type, the Times Roman. But you want to have a book that's written that they feel there's going to be an audience for it. So as you're writing it, and you can decide, you might just say, and I have a number of people doing it, they just want to write a book for their family. They just want to leave something for their family. They're going to take it to Staples. They're going to print, 30 copies and give it, to Aunt Betty and Uncle Joe and whoever. And that's really okay. But, if you really want to write something that's going to be published, you need to think a little bit more about how you're writing it. And obviously, you absolutely, absolutely must have it edited. I don't care how good a writer you are. I don't care how good you think you are at editing. Trust me, you want, right? I mean, Rose, if you want to really get this going to a publisher, your memoir, you really need to have it edited. But there's so much about the process of writing a memoir, and going back to all of that, and what is the story you want to tell? What are the truths you want to tell? And I just recently helped a gentleman, and it was very interesting working with him. He had come to my classes, and then he said, when I work one-on-one with him, he wanted to write his memoir. And what it is, and he recently, independent publisher, and it's called Secrets. How does it? Oh, Secrets of Growing Up Gay in the 1950s. Well, talk about emotion. And, at first he was writing what that experience was about being gay. And then it was like, when he first was getting ready to have it published, he said, well, I just want my family to read it. Well, now he wants it published and out for the world. He's gotten past that barrier. So you want to think about that. But we talked about what was the structure. He knew what his story was. He knew his story was, as a youth, that he was pretty lonely, very overweight. But he was willing to be honest, and he wrote about that. And then he divided it, very educated. So we divided it. The first section is family. What was that like growing up? So what was your life growing up? What were the impact? What people had an impact on you, positive and negative? And you want to write that down. So, what are the impact different people have in our life? Who are the people that maybe, had the most impact on you, good and bad, and what and why. So this was a great structure idea in the town. That first we did family, and then he wrote about, different things about how the family, the positive and negative things impacted on him. How certain things impacted on him because of being overweight. So we all have childhood things that impact on us. I mean, one of the things, and I talk about this, whether I'm teaching or my own memoir, when I was 8 years old, I had polio. And I am very lucky. By the end of 3 months, I was fine for the most part. But so many people weren't. But the impact that has had on my entire life, as I was writing the memoir, I was like, oh my gosh, even more than I thought. So as you begin to write, you're going to find that some of those things you just thought surfacely had an impact, maybe more of an impact and more emotional. But when you're done writing it, you can delete anything that you've written or changed it. So here was this story about this man that we did this, and then so it was family. Then we did something, I think we did career. We did travel because It turned out travel was one of the loves of his life. He's traveled to 23 countries. I mean, I know some people just love travel. You know, nowadays I think, wow, I'm lucky I walked to the car. You know, but people, travel's really important to a lot of people. So, but his travel was also part of what helped change his life. So we got to the part where he had a major health issue, retired for a while because he was PhD educator, and he went to Thailand. And we've talked about this because he had been there before, and he ended up meeting his life partner. And I said to him as he was writing it, I said, when you were really sick and you thought about going back to Thailand, wasn't there something you thought that's a place where I could meet somebody? So what I'm telling you about this is because you really want to write your memoir. If you're going to write it for anyone probably other than your family, you want to dig deep. And that's part of when I think about it, like being a memoir detective, how far are you going to search? When I write a mystery, it's always like, okay, what are the clues? What are the things that happened to brought me to the solution? So what are the things when you're writing your memoir and you want to tell your story, what are the things that are going to take you to be able to tell the whole story in a way that does tell the story of your life? What do you want people to know about you? What don't you? I had somebody about coming to my memoir class, and then she said, no, I'm not coming. I don't want anyone to know about my life. It's like, okay, that says a lot right there. But the fact is, just write what your truths are. And it helps to probably read. There's several really, I always want to call it the glass ceiling, but there's that memoir. I can't remember. It's always, I'll think it's at the back of my memoir. I wrote a little memoir workbook, but that's
The
not.
Glass Castle.
Thank you very much. I always know there's the word glass. Thank you. And I always want to say glass ceiling because the feminist in me is always thinking that. But it is the glass castle, and it is when a boy called it. One of the ones that I absolutely love, who wrote a memoir, was Stephen King. And I don't like thrillers. I don't read thrillers, but his memoir was wonderful. And he really talked about writing, and he talked about telling his life story, and he was very honest about it. And I love this one piece about it because he said he was like a senior in high school, and he was writing one of his gory mystery stories, and his teacher actually said to him, if you really want to be a successful writer, you're going to have to stop writing stories like that. He said it took him to the age 40 and all those huge income checks to realize that teacher was wrong. So that was such an impact that person had on him, that it had this negative effect for so long. So, who are the people that impacted on you? What are your relationships? What things caused you to, take on the career that you wanted? Did you want to do something and somebody, they really stopped you from doing it? And, there's so many things about writing memoirs, about your emotions and hidden memories. Are there things that you're happy about or sad about or angry about? And not which of those do you want to write? So, I think I could go on and talk about writing memoirs. I wrote this workbook about how to write your memoir, how to write your memoir workbook. It's not something I'm saying that you need to buy, but you need something to help structure you. I find working on memoirs different than, let's say, when I do mysteries, people, and I've given lectures about mysteries, people will say, are you a planner? Or, or do you sort of write organically? And I write organically. I know who the protagonist is. I know there's murders, and I know they're going to be solved. The rest, as I go along. I don't think you can do that when you're writing your memoir. I think you do need to keep some notes and some outlines and some planning about deciding which way you want to structure that memoir. How do you want to tell the story? And, you know, what is the best format for you to? And by reading some of these other memoirs, and there's a lot out, and a lot of them are, of course, they're celebrities that are, you know, with embellishment about who they slept with and so forth. I mean, I think it was recently Barbara Streisand wrote a memoir that was over 500 pages. I mean, I couldn't write 500 pages of a memoir, but you know, that celebrities, it's a different focus. So, you know, the thing about it is that, you know, how do you tell your story? One of the things in writing a memoir that's interesting sometimes are, as you're writing about maybe a certain instance or family, are having little sections of backstory, you know, and sometimes your backstory, you go, well, when this happened, I remember this, and that's why this impacted on me. You know, this is why I became a writer or a dancer, or, you know, a politician, whatever. So sometimes, you know, having backstories help fill in some of the spaces. I think I should answer some questions that might be better.